All right, guys, welcome to another episode of
Cheech and Chong
Cheech and
history
Chong.
lessons.
Episode 2,
See, it says Cheech and Chong.
Cheech and Chong. That's right. Now, this is another talk discussion about the anti-war movement in Australia. And I was thinking this morning, that's right, so I was thinking this morning, it just happened to me. It was strange and it hurt my head. That,
New therapy.
this is really the first time, isn't it, sir, that conscription is introduced into Australia? Is that right? In the 1960s?
Yes.
So a successful time.
You thought that up.
I did think that up because I remembered in World War One that it was unsuccessful. Remember that,
They
sir?
introduced it in the Second World War.
In the Second World War, it was introduced, was it?
Yeah.
The militia
Yeah.
to fight the Japanese.
Yeah, to defend Australian territory in New Guinea.
But here, we're not defending Australian territory, are we, sir? What are we doing?
We are forward defensing.
Forward defensing. Okay. Look, if you love your cricket, you know what forward defence is as well. Coming forward to the ball, isn't that right, sir? When it's pitched up. Anyway, I'm not going to get into
How the hell would I know that?
that. You've played before, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
The thing about the anti-war movement is that the protests are about, number one, here you can see on your little document there, conscription. Okay, that's the biggest problem. Forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. That's an issue for Australians, isn't it, sir? We don't like being forced to do stuff, do we?
No,
We don't like doing stuff in the first place, really.
Yeah.
I don't like doing this.
getting Australia to do anything, considering they're comatose to start with.
Exactly. That's right. But no one was going to sign up to this war voluntarily because it wasn't really a war, was it, sir?
No.
What was it then?
Police action.
A police action. Okay.
Send the cops.
So let's force people to go to a place where there isn't war, it's just a police action. Is that right?
Yes.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, second thing is that it's this second period, you've actually got combat troops. Australia is sending troops into Vietnam, right? Half of them will be regular army and half will be conscripted. Of course, remember, as Eddie Phillips told you, you don't actually have to go to Vietnam. You can sign to do other things. You don't have to. You are conscripted. You don't have to. But still, the public thinks that conscripted soldiers are being forced to go to Vietnam, where they could be killed.
That's the myth, isn't it?
That is the myth.
That's the myth.
The myth is often stronger than reality.
Indeed it was. Okay. All right, here's our second stage, our grassroots movement. 1965 to 66. You can see the players in this group are a little bit more important perhaps than our Labor mob. Okay, we've got the Australian Labor Party. Okay, this is a big organisation. The ACTU, the Australian Council of Trade Unions. These guys, oversee all the trade unions in Australia. Save Our Sons sounds pretty small and pathetic, but it's actually pretty important, wasn't it, sir?
Yeah, really.
And then we've got the youth as well. The youth are on board now. Youth campaign against conscription. Okay, our university mobs. And these guys bring a new element to the movement. Sir, what do you have to say?
Okay, notice the term grassroots. What I mean by that is that you're actually getting down to the the public itself. You're really bringing on board average Mr. and Mrs. Joe Blow Australian, right? They're going to get involved. Now you can see this is happening on several levels, but when we talk about a grassroots movement, it means it's starting from the bottom up. Remember the previous period, we sort of had a bit of a laugh at the photographs because clearly that is not your average Joe Blow, right? No. Instead, look at the people that are involved. You've got the Australian Labor Party. That's half the Australian population votes Labor, just about. Then you've got trade unions. That's serious muscle.
Yeah.
And those are the people that can control the movement, the anti-war movement. Now, these other groups, Save Our Sons is mums who are against conscription and against war. And it's very much about anti-conscription. Number three, I'm coming to them because youth campaigning against conscription is just one of many university groups, but they're probably the loudest. Look at the fellows on the other side with wearing a pair of flippers and making fun of the Prime Minister Holt, who liked to go spearfishing. He's a university student.
Yeah.
Okay, what these two groups bring is you get the mums involved. And you get university students. You've got two of the most intelligent, creative groups within the Australian community are now driving this anti-war movement.
Yeah. And it's, I guess you can see down below here, it's organised under the Labor Party, isn't it?
So it's legitimate.
It's legitimate. You know?
Absolutely.
So it's gained significant ground and momentum, you know, and it's become a serious force now, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, and to give you an idea, okay, you're thinking, mums, what do you mean creative? Well, are they just creative cooks or what? Oh no, they come up with a brilliant campaign. They call it a mail or falsie. What would happen was they got a hold of all these replies for conscription notices, then they filled them in with fake names and fake addresses, and then they mailed them all in.
Yeah.
Thousands of these things came in. Well, what this did was it just tied up conscription, because the police had to be sent round to all these fake addresses to find out why these people weren't conscripting who didn't exist in the first place. It drove them absolutely insane.
I heard of one story that they'd feed people like curries and stuff to make them fail the medicals and stuff. Is that true as well?
Yeah, heaps of that, and rub stuff in your eyes so
Yeah.
that you can't see properly.
No, really, really creative stuff. And the youth there, you know, the youth like at this school, for example, you know, just crazy, you know. So you can imagine that dynamism coming into the anti-war movement, this youth trying to, you know, change things and bring energy to this kind of stilted movement that you saw before with those professional, I guess, protesters. Anything else you want to say about this, sir, before we move on?
Youth Campaigning Act, one of their little scams was there was some roadworks out in front of Sydney University, and it had all been marked out. So some bright spark in the Youth Campaigning Against Conscription group, the YCAC, phones up the police and tells the police that there's a bunch of protesters dressed up as workmen who are pretending to be workmen, but in fact they're protesting against the Vietnam War. They need to get down there and do something about it. Then they ring up the roadworks and they tell the roadworks that there's a bunch of students dressed up as police who are coming to sort them out as a part of the anti-war movement. Then they all sat back and watched this huge, great big Barney taking place on Parramatta Road out in front of the university for the amusement of everybody. I mean, this gold, son.
Gold. That's awesome.
Go for gold.
Yeah, so you can see here the war movement is popularised with this youth. That's funny stuff, you know. Of course you want to get involved in those shenanigans. That'd be cool. I bet you were doing that, sir, when you were younger, weren't you?
Oh, I was too young.
Too young? Now, what are these ladies doing here? These fine, upstanding young mothers. What are they doing?
Would you challenge those women if you were going down an aisle in Woolworths?
Not this lady.
And they would be, oh, hell no.
Look at her.
Yep. They're actually protesting about a guy called Bill White. I'll have a look at his photo in a minute. But these ladies, the SOS, I mean, they were real, as I said, they could be very creative, but they were also very staunchly anti-war. And anytime there was a protest, these women will be out there wearing a blue and white sashes, standing for SOS, and representing Mothers Against War. It's a powerful message, especially when it's every single protest has them there, and they're saying, look at what this war is doing to mothers.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so what's happening here? Passions.
Okay, we're now talking about the next phase in the anti-war movement, when the dates will come up in a minute because I can't remember them. Oi, don't you lie.
Do you want to go to the next slide then for you?
No, just, okay.
Fudge your way through this.
We get the grassroots movement starting, but in the next period, we're heading in towards the results from the television are coming through. You're seeing the Tet Offensive. You're seeing things like the massacre at My Lai. All sorts of horror from the Vietnam War is coming out. And a lot of people believe that this war needs to end now, and they're starting to get more and more passionate, but they're not seeing change from the government. And they believe that we need to get as well as that, there's a number of groups that are communist and socialist, and they believe, hey, let's wipe out the whole wretched system. Get rid of Australian democracy and put a proper communist government in. That's what I say. Bring in Uncle Stalin.
Uncle Stalin.
No, they really believe that.
Oh, yeah. Nutters.
So we're next calling this section, this period from 1966 to 69, is radical and militant.
Yeah, well, you can see the kind of groups involved in this. The waterside workers, these guys are known for their rebellion and their striking up, they serve.
Yep, they sure are. Amalgamated postal workers.
Gee, the postal workers? Really? The posties?
Oh, the posties, they get stuck in there, mate.
Stuck in there,
But what's more, of course, they got a lot of people very angry with them because they were cutting off the mail to the soldiers in Vietnam, and the waterside workers were cutting off supplies. They were blockading the ports.
It's un-Australian.
Oh, my ass.
Un-Australian. So they were opposing the war by not sending our troops what they needed. What are you saying?
Absolutely. And then you have student groups that get a bit more radical. They've got socialist and communist beliefs, and they're actually strongly pro-VC and NBA. Many of them were actually committing treason by raising money for the communist forces in Vietnam, buying the bullets that would shoot down Australian soldiers. As you can imagine, this did not have a particularly good effect on the public, and for a while it caused your average Mr. and Mrs. Joe Blow Australian, Aussie oi oi oi, to turn against the anti-war movement. But things are getting pretty hot and violent on the streets.
And I guess also it affects Labor, doesn't it? You know, they've been riding this wave, this tide of popularity, and then these guys step in and they embarrass them. Everyone's like, well, if you guys are part of this as well, then we don't want to vote for you, you know?
Well, that's one of the reasons it took them a while to actually get into government, is because people looked at these whack jobs. Sorry, that wasn't very nice, was it?
It's politically, I think that's a correct term, isn't it? Whack jobs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm happy with them. If they're not sending stuff to our troops, and I think that's pretty wacko, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, it caused the public to question the anti-war movement. Something needed to happen to change that.
So this is similar, really. It mirrors what happens in America as well. In fact, America goes to the next extreme. There's actual proper riots. There's bullets fired. There are riot police.
Oh, in Kent State University, people got shot.
People get shot, okay, and people die through this. But does anyone die in Australia from this, sir? Does it get that bad?
Oh, I think a few people might have had, large policemen might have had heart attacks, and a couple of the oversized SOS ones had heart palpitations, but that's about it.
That's about it. Nothing.
Yeah, we in Australia, we don't like that kind of thing. It's not like revolution, it's a bit too much.
John Zarb. Who's John Zarb? Postman.
Postman, yeah. He becomes a bit of a martyr. He actually goes to prison. He was conscripted and refused to go as a conscientious objector. Ended up in prison. I think he gets out in about 7 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, the postal workers put, as a result, they put go slow bans on all the mail going to the Australian task force in Vietnam, which really, so the Vietnam soldiers actually had a counter campaign, which was called Punch a Postie.
Punch a Postie. Yeah, you can imagine being a soldier in Vietnam, can't you? That word imagining, sir, hey?
Oh, that's a heap good word.
A heap good word imagining.
Goes with resilience and metallurgy.
Oh gosh, don't get me started. Anyway, you can imagine being a soldier and suddenly you hear the country's turned against what you're doing over there. You're called baby killers. You're not getting your mail on time. Supplies are slow. You don't get your ration of rum. Okay?
Do some work.
So don't worry about those guys in the background. Bloody riffraff. Anyway, how would it affect how you're fighting the war? Would you want to keep fighting it, or would you start questioning it yourself, perhaps? I don't know.
No, I'll go and punch a postie.
Punch a postie. Which was something here, punch a postie?
No, that's one of the violent Australian demonstrations. You know, there's guys rolling on the ground and there's cops jumping on top of them. The protesters hitting them with signs, spitting at each other. People were throwing those little caltrops, you know, those pointed things, because police were riding horses to control them. Oh, not nice.
Getting ugly. 69.
Oh,
Getting ugly.
Need to go to the pub instead, mate.
Year of the moon and year of the right. Okay, the moratorium movement. Now, sir, from my understanding, moratorium is to like stop everything, isn't it? You know, just stop everything. Stop everything and sit down.
Will not sit down, get out there and protest.
Take a stand by sitting down, is that right?
Yeah, basically what happened is that, okay, the Labor Party, as we said, during this militant period, they're actually being set back by some elements in the protest movement. So the Labor Party finally starts to crack down on this, mostly under Gough Whitlam and some of the more Jim Cairns and others. These politicians began tightening control, working through the unions to stop the crazies, right? And what they said, we want to create a mass movement. We want to go from grassroots. We've had enough of the militant rubbish. We now need to go to a mass movement. So they began running basically a slogan, stop work to stop the war. So everyone was going to go on strike, get out on the streets and protest.
And here's what we have. This is our last kind of, you know, act in the whole anti-war movement. So, because we finished in 1972, the troops come out around then. And see here, Dr. Cairns, he's an ALP speaker, is he? He's pretty high up in the
he was
ALP
very
party.
much behind this, very much a driving force, quite a persuasive, has a very interesting Junie Morosi. You don't know anything about that. Oh, you were so
Puzzle took everyone on my face when he said that.
Yeah.
Is that a singer or something, or what? Junie Morosi?
Check it out, mate.
We're all asking the same
Learn
question.
your bloody history.
We're questioning, all right?
How un-Australian
So
are you?
Cairns, he's not the leader though, is he?
No.
Gough's the leader.
Gough is the leader of the party, but definitely Cairns and a couple others are the speakers that are motivating people. And look at the numbers there. We're starting to talk about now getting 60 to 70,000 people out on the streets. There were, in fact, three movements. In the first moratorium movement, which was the biggest, I can't remember the exact, oh, they're down below. Look, see, if you look down below, the rallies were large, 70,000 in Melbourne. Of course, we in New South Wales are a bit more laid back. We only got 20,000. But these are huge numbers. That blocks the whole city. Everybody's listening. The press is reporting on it. The second and third moratorium movements started to drop down. One of the reasons is that by the first moratorium movement, the Australian government is actually pulling the troops out of Vietnam, so there's less to protest. By the time of the second and the third, the numbers are dropping.
You get a day off though, so that's worth protesting, isn't it? You get a
Oh,
day off.
look what you get today if you could have one. Climate change, I'm out to protest. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Go Greta.
Go Greta. Day off, that's what's in it for them. You know, imagine 20,000. 20,000 is the average crowd at a league game in Sydney. Okay, imagine all those bullheads out there,
Yeah.
you know, sitting down and listen to a lovely speech by Dr. Cairns there. Here's some of our youth here. What are these guys doing? Is he burning something
They're
there? Is he?
burning their conscription notices.
So they're Aussie young males, are they?
Yeah, young Andy
Nationals.
London. I think he actually flees Australia and heads overseas and is never seen again. But yeah, this was a common tactic that had been learnt from America. You went out and you burnt it, you made a big statement, and hopefully got yourself arrested, and you could say some nasty things to the cops when it happened.
Well, in America, they're sitting outside the White House, the returned veterans, and they're throwing their medals that they won in Vietnam over onto the White House lawn, saying that these things
they do it bigger and better.
they do it bigger and better. Imagine an Australian soldier throwing his medal over, I don't know, where would we throw it to? The Parliament House?
The
or
Lodge.
something? The Lodge?
The Lodge,
Like
yeah.
Lodge, I guess. Not really as
No, not very dramatic.
fair,
Kind of
really.
boring, actually.
Maybe in like Burley Griffin or something. I don't know. Off the bridge.
Just
Harbour
lack of
Bridge,
opportunity
you know?
to get heated.
Exactly. You know?
Anyway, so those are your four stages of the anti-war movement. You want to go through and make your notes about the essential points, like who are the key groups, what are they, the tactics and strategies that were used, just dot point them, and roughly the effects.
That's right.
Uh,
And look, I think we'll leave it there, sir. What do you reckon?
oh, we should do the white protest.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
promised we would.
Okay, yeah. Oh, let's go to him.
So there you go.
Yep.
There
That
you
stuff
go.
there. Well, they can pause that. Let's move on. Come on. Hey.
Oh, actually, it's not. Let's do this for the next one. We'll do the cartoons with it. You'll have to
Okay.
wait for Mr. Bill White's exciting photograph
All right.
with the beautiful policeman
Yeah, no worries. So you want to leave this
called
here?
Dancing with the Pigs.
We'll leave this here? We done today?
Oh, I suppose. Are you done?
No, I'm done.
No, you done?
I'm done.
You really done?
I'm finished.
Okay.
That's the
Get on.
bill. Let's get out of here.
Now I can actually teach my other class. That'll be a first.